Well, welcome everyone and good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for tonight's webinar, which is around the education program that the Queensland AI Hub is putting together. So we've titled it Enhancing Intelligence, Educating Queensland and Beyond. First, I'd like to recognise the traditional custodians of the various lands on which we are all meeting today, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. So today, to find out a bit more about our plans for different education programs, we have two speakers who also work for the Queensland AI Hub: Ali Anderson, who is our Education Partnerships Manager, and Steph Chausis, who is our MedTech Program Manager. So we are going to, first I'm going to hand over to, first I'm going to talk a little bit about the AI Hub to set the scene before we talk about our potential education program. And as many of you probably know, the Queensland AI Hub was funded for 4 years by the Queensland Government. And we have a number of key objectives that we are seeking to meet. Our main objective is to help build the AI community and support the people who are creating AI here in Queensland, and really raise their profile so that it's not a well-kept secret and that everyone actually knows about the AI capability that we have here in Queensland. The second part of our objectives is really around how we can help to educate both government and corporates, businesses of all sizes, on how they can embrace artificial intelligence technologies. And in that way, we can grow the local market to help the creation of our AI companies, and also, you know, to enable our existing industries to become more sustainable. And another element of what we're trying to achieve is to have Queensland get global prominence as an AI strong point. So actually helping a lot of our AI companies to scale by opening up those global markets and having a view beyond our own borders. Now, to be able to achieve those three objectives and hopefully encourage some investment here in Queensland around artificial intelligence, we need to educate a lot of the different components of the system at many levels. So for our AI companies, there are often areas where people want to upskill or share information and form communities of practice to learn new skills and techniques and ways of doing things. For people who work in government or for industry, it's about understanding some of the many applications of artificial intelligence and how they can be applied to their own settings, and how we might be able to link in local AI capability to help them solve challenges. And then more broadly for the Queensland community, it's about having greater awareness about what artificial intelligence is and what it means, so that hopefully we can reduce some of the fear factor around artificial intelligence, and I guess help people to become masters of their own destiny and be able to have a say in you know, any policies and other things that they might face when they're thinking about how they might apply new artificial intelligence technologies. So we're looking at different ways that we can provide these education programs that cater for different segments within our community. And to really outline what that means, I'm going to hand over to our Education Partnerships Manager, Ali Anderson. Thanks, Ali.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Sue. Hello, everybody. It's great to have you with us. So yeah, we'll kick off. So if you read the registration information when you enrolled for this, you'll already have learnt a little bit about me. So my background is a combination of organisational development, project management, adult education and outreach, specifically in artificial intelligence and machine learning. I am absolutely thrilled to have been given the opportunity to oversee education partnerships at the AI Hub and to hopefully have your undivided attention for the next 15 minutes. I'd probably like to start by prefacing the presentation itself with 3 quick points. The first is that while I will talk about key industries and areas of focus, we are not limited by these, and nor is our intent or goal to be. We're a hub for all Queensland people first and foremost, and that includes industries and businesses. We're about ethical and responsible AI for good, and as an enabler for humans, never a replacement. The second is that the focus of the education arm of the Hub is developing and maintaining educational partnerships. So I want to make that relatively clear. That's with AI experts, innovation hubs, universities and other training institutions delivering the courses, classes, programs, workshops and the like on our behalf. The Hub's role is to provide this range of options and facilitate connection with those relevant education solutions, not to deliver these ourselves. The third, and probably one of the more critical parts of the education piece, involves you, our audience and our community. What we're calling our strategy tonight is probably more about a little bit of an unveiling of our ideas, our values, our opportunities and our challenges, and some of the key areas of focus for us. It's not set in stone, and we expect that this will continually iterate. So you'll see, you know, changes as we go and learn and respond to what everyone is asking. And we really look forward to your questions and your feedback and your suggestions. They will always be sought, they will always be welcomed tonight and moving into the future. So this leads us on to the education mission, which you can see hopefully on the slide in front of you, technology permitting. I'll elaborate a little bit more about that innovation, compassion, diversity and inclusion piece shortly. However, I do want to touch a little more on how our education strategy feeds into the broader AI Hub vision and aims. Sue's already explained that to some degree, which I'm very appreciative for. And if you've attended one of our AI Hub specific seminars before, you probably know quite a bit about these. Growing an awareness of AI is really the centerpiece of the strategy. So Queensland, as we're discovering in our explorations, has a surprisingly large AI ecosystem. We weren't aware of how large until we actually started, you know, meeting with people and finding this out. So due to several factors, including geography, because Queensland is so vast, sectoral silos, and you know, a general lack of awareness as to how AI can be implemented in some businesses, education and awareness building really do go hand in hand. This allows us to not only connect and showcase local AI talent and businesses, but to bring them together with others. And I think that's really important so they can gain relevant learning and then grow their own knowledge in businesses. And if you have a look at the third point, assisting in the growth of AI talent and solutions and then positioning those on the world stage is really important. And we also want to act as a conduit. So it's a two-way street. We want to bring international talent here to Queensland. We feel that that will be hugely beneficial to the state and more broadly, economically, socially, environmentally, and probably on a number of different levels. So that's really important to us. Moving on to the strategy itself. So what we've done is pretty much establish some pillars as to how we want this to look. So it touches on one of the points I made at the beginning of the presentation, that being that the Hub's position on key industries and cohorts is by no means exhaustive, and that we really do promote and support a whole of state approach. We don't believe that there is a single person or cohort that should be excluded from our training or education opportunities, or could not benefit with some type of engagement with AI education, whether that's accredited, whether that's technical, whether it's professional development, or simply just confidence building and personal interest. You know, there are many different imperatives for undertaking training and understanding, and we want to make sure we capture most of those. In terms of the leadership, we recognise and we prioritise our role as a national leader in the AI space to develop a model which proactively seeks out, so it doesn't just act on, but seeks out and addresses diversity and inclusion issues and practices. Some significant inroads have been made by many wonderful people and companies in addressing some of the D&I issues in AI. There still is, however, and probably for a long time will be, a lot of work to be done in achieving true equity. So we're currently putting a fair bit of effort into initiatives that will seek to address that imbalance with programs for diverse cultures, genders, socioeconomic groups and others. We want to stand proudly, really proudly at the forefront of local, national and global thought leadership in this area to support people and businesses utilising AI to implement, you know, we want to help you implement and embed these types of diversity and inclusion initiatives along with the policies and processes in your own business, in your own lives. We think that's really important. So those are the pillars we want to act on. And we're now moving to the money, what I like to call the money slide. These are the challenges and the opportunities. So these are things that we really have to consider, and these are the things that we've broken down. So coming back again to the intent of our education portfolio, what we're trying to do is provide education opportunities for as many people as possible. I think I've said that several times, but it is important. And from those who have minimal to no understanding of AI, all the way up to those that are advanced practitioners. So we're looking at ways that we can engage everybody from a broad cross-section of the community, businesses, educational levels, age, cultural backgrounds and geographical areas. So we're working to ensure that the initiatives that we're talking about work as stepping stones. So you can begin with a simple foundational course of AI and its different types. You can look to understand how to use it to better understand your commercial needs and your customers' imperatives, grow your business, bridge the gap from research to commercialisation. That's really important. Opening up pathways to further education and to spark the light of curiosity in our young people and keep them in the state. It was noted by Minister Jones earlier this year that the number of AI jobs available in Queensland far outstripped the required talent to fill them. I think the number was somewhere up to 8 times. We're not entirely sure where exactly in AI those gaps lie. So we need to start by understanding what they are and where they lie, how we can contribute to filling those, and get creative about the way that we engage people into artificial intelligence. So that final column over to your right is a list of initiatives that we're sort of looking at in these early stages. The first is fairly self-explanatory, the basic underpinning principles and common applications of AI. Executive education tends to work on a sort of 2-day workshop model, often honing in on the application and relevance to a particular business or industry. These can be delivered off-site with people from different organisations participating, or they can be done in-house for larger businesses with bigger teams that need to upskill a lot of people. Micro-credential and nano-degree courses, these are slightly different and they're becoming a lot more popular. So we're currently in discussions with 2 people, a Brisbane-based group and an international group around delivering these types of courses. We think they have real value. Typically, these are delivered online, broken into several modules and focus on developing technical skills like data analytics, for example, specific programming languages and the like. So we would partner with these companies, but we would also look to conduct in-person study groups based at the hub or wherever they need to be, just to keep people motivated, because we know that education is often most successful when you're able to, you know, share ideas with people and talk about things and kind of bounce things off each other. So we really want to augment those online learnings with a model like that. Industry-specific presentations and briefings. I like your shortened version of the executive education. They can be anywhere between 1 and 3 hours, and they can be delivered on-site or via live streaming, so they're fairly flexible in that way. Transformer Labs I've put in there, and they're not specific to the education portfolio, but I think they form a very important piece of our whole strategy, and they're one of the stepping stones that I mentioned, from awareness building and education through to actualisation of a concept or product. And I think that's really important part of the education piece, and we're really hoping to provide some different experts to facilitate and assist with these. Primary and secondary school engagement is one of our key KPIs. We take that one very seriously, and again, we want to engage, train and keep talent in this state, and we need to start that from earliest years. So it will be about building AI curiosity, capturing imaginations, awareness of career pathways and opportunity to get involved with AI workshops, events, hackathons, field trips. There's a number of ways that this can be done. And we'll also be looking to make that 2-way as well and showcase some of the amazing work that's happening in schools here, because there are some incredible programs out there in the school community. And I, for one, am really excited about the opportunities that that presents. ATSI, so Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander specific programs are also a priority for us, and one that we will be approaching with the utmost respect for community knowledge and needs as identified by those communities. So these need to be community led. We understand that, we respect that, and we'll be utilising Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander specific business consultancy to assist us with this strategy, you know, in terms of building and implementing that. So that's really important. And down the bottom, we've got the women and gender diverse. So as I mentioned towards the beginning of the presentation a couple of times, so you can tell I have a particular passion for this area. We'll be working really hard to embed diversity and inclusion across the entire education partnership portfolio, not just in this area, but it will certainly form a big part of it. there will be significant attention paid to initiatives that address this gender imbalance in AI. We're already partnered with a couple of organisations, including the Young Women Leaders in Artificial Intelligence, and we'll be working hard to add other partnerships that build out our offerings in this area. So there's your level of AI understanding, the key groups and cohorts, although not exhaustive, and the education initiatives, which again are not exhaustive, but we think they're enough to go and find by now. And we'd be really interested on your feedback on that as well. So the key industries, and I've been very careful to put some key industries there because again, these industries are by no means the only ones that we will be working with, but rather some initial sectors of focus for the hub as they've been identified by the state government as current and future drivers of the Queensland economy. I won't touch on healthcare or medtech as this topic will be spoken to by our medtech programs manager, Steph, who sits below me in the speaker panel there. Except to say that this is a real growth area for AI and there's a great deal of activity happening in Queensland in this space. Some really, really cutting edge technology being developed right here, improving the quality of care for millions of people and saving lives on a wide scale. So that's really exciting. Some of the companies in these sectors do use AI and machine learning already, but many more don't. And there's going to be a need, a critical need to upskill these sectors swiftly to keep up with the leaps and bounds in AI technologies, to meet the demands of clients, consumers, and to remain competitive in the global market. That's what we're about. These programs need to be targeted. You know, we've spoken to a lot of people. We need to clearly explain the value of developing and implementing a specific type of AI and provide relevant examples. So people often don't see how this applies to their business. And so we're very mindful that the AI programs that we work to deliver are going to provide this context for them. And we'll be consolidating feedback, as I've said, at every step of the way to make sure we can ensure relevancy in this sector. And finally, before I hand over to Steph, I'm just going to talk about our regional engagement strategy briefly, because this, you know, this is a really, really important piece of what we're doing. It's going to be very challenging. However, it's going to be one of the most rewarding if we can get it right, and we're very, very keen to do so. So I'm sure most people here today are aware of how massive Queensland is, as I said earlier, and the remote regions of Queensland in particular have a very unique set of challenges. So being far away from the metro hubs and the relative abundance of education and collaboration opportunities here that living in or near city centres provide. So they're lacking that. Employment is much harder to find. Opportunities are quite a bit fewer. Climate change is having a severe impact out in the regions. And of course, the economy is unstable due to a number of factors, not the least of which is COVID-19. So regions are doing it tough right now. Our focus here is to really understand and support the primary regional industries of Queensland, those being healthcare, mining, environment, energy and utilities, and agriculture. The overarching objective, I think it's safe to say, is that we really want to improve the productivity, the connectedness, and the sustainability of these industries, especially where we have a competitive strength, and we do in this state. You know, again, we're doing some really cutting edge stuff here, and we need to put that on the world stage, you know, and we need to create more jobs, and there is definitely that opportunity out there. Using agriculture as an example, because I have a fair bit of experience in that and I can talk to that, AI can assist this sector in many, many ways. So one of those ways is applying AI to satellite imagery. As you can imagine, it's really, really hard to manually inspect thousands and thousands of hectares of land regularly. And often this doesn't get done, you know, for years. So what satellite imagery can do is lead to better management of the land by ensuring that degradation, such as overstocking of animals or poor application of water or fertilisers or even chemical treatments, is minimised. It can be used for crop classification and yield estimation. So you can classify the crops and you can tell your crops from your weeds, and then you can also estimate what your yield is going to be, which is of course very, very useful economically and for predicting your seasonal economic performance. So, you know, we want to really hone in on the introduction to AI out there, kind of get, you know, a really good feel for what's happening. AI in action, as I said in the previous slide, it's really important to us that, you know, regions and regional practitioners of AI, or those that want to, actually understand how they can do it. So we want to put people out there that are already doing it and can help those businesses. That industry sector specific workshop is going to be a really important part. the transformation and helping businesses to enact those learnings and engaging with the ATSI communities, of course, in the regions is going to be really important as well. So again, keen to hear your feedback on that. And that's pretty much all from me. I've done that as quickly as I can. I've got my stopwatch on and I think I've pretty much made time. So I'm very, very proud of myself. Any questions that you have, please put them in the chat function and we will get to them in the final section. If you have any questions that you want to ask offline, or you're interested in becoming a partner, or simply want to get in touch, you can certainly do that. Our generic email address is education@qldaihub.com. And of course, the presenters here tonight are also on Twitter and LinkedIn as well. So please connect and follow us there. And I'd like you to join me in welcoming Steph to the stage. Steph, just tell me when you need me to flick a slide because I'm in control here and I'm loving it.
I will, no worries. Thanks a lot, Ali. That was a really great overview of the things we've got planned and you've got planned as you're heading up this program. So appreciate it and looking forward to watching things unfold. So yeah, some of you may know me from some webinars and also that, you know, the Datathon and the various medtech focused events that we've been running. And I guess that's why we're going to take a little bit more of a closer look at education around healthcare and AI today, because that's been one of the sectors we've focused on initially since the launch of the hub. It's been great that we've had a really keen interest from various people from different backgrounds in, you know, AI for healthcare and education around that. So I just wanted to give a little overview on, first of all, why and who we'll be offering these education programs for, and then a little bit about what that will look like. So what sort of events and programs we'll be running in the healthcare sector. I think it's important to point out that, you know, first of all, we're not putting on education, or we're not partnering with education just for certification. So it's not all about, you know, becoming certified as an AI practitioner. It's education just to inform people and empower people to be confident in implementing AI in their field, and especially in the healthcare sector. So, you know, the health tech education programs are for clinicians. They are also for AI practitioners, and they're also for the patient, which I included there instead of saying everyone, because all people have been patients of the healthcare system. And I think that's why it's really important that we do have a health and healthcare for AI focus in our education program, because healthcare is very personal and it touches everyone. And so the program is aimed at, yes, you know, creating programs where people can gain credentials to practice AI in healthcare, but also informing people who are impacted by this and who are curious about, you know, if I'm a patient at a hospital that's using AI technology, how does it impact me? And making people feel safe and that they can trust AI and that it's actually going to improve their experience. So that's definitely an angle that we're taking with our education program. Some of the things that the education program for healthcare will look at are what impacts will AI have on the healthcare system and are already having. So it's not that this is not already happening. You know, AI is already used, you know, in the healthcare system. We want to look at how can we empower healthcare professionals to work with AI in their field. So especially with the medical datathon we ran, we found that there were a lot of clinicians and healthcare practitioners who were really interested in the concept and, you know, thinking about how AI and ML can be used in their field to solve specific problems, but they just didn't know how. And obviously they don't necessarily have the time or the will to become a practitioner themselves, do an entire degree in it, but just, you know, some top level programs on educating on how, you know, AI can impact the field and what are the possibilities. How can we inform AI practitioners, so the data scientists and the cloud architects and those people, you know, on the unique aspects of AI for healthcare? So one of our potential partners, Udacity, runs courses specific for people who are very familiar with, you know, computing and programming, Python languages, but on how to apply those skills to clinical data, because clinical data can be unique. You know, it can come in lots of different forms, and also there are some specific sensitivities around it. So we can also come in from that angle on educating people who have the skills to develop AI tools, but want to apply it to the healthcare system and healthcare data. And then also, as I mentioned, how will AI in healthcare impact the patient? So that's something we really want to make sure that we're big on and that we share with people. So we can go to the next slide. I was about to flick, but I realized I wouldn't do anything. So before I move forward, I just wanted to quickly touch on some examples, just to give you an idea. So, AI is already being used in the healthcare system. One great example is that it can essentially support clinicians in doing their job better and allowing them to focus on the patient more by, doing sort of, you don't want to say mundane, but tasks that might be very repetitive, very fatiguing for the clinician in analysing patient data, which they need to do in order to, come up with a diagnosis. So there is this AI diagnosing deadly blood diseases faster that's being undertaken at the Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Centre. And so there are about 25,000 images of blood samples that were analysed by the AI, and they were able to identify and predict harmful bacteria in this blood with a 95% accuracy. So that is incredibly great, and that is all automated. And what that means is that, these highly skilled clinicians can then, put that sort of hard work to the AI and look at those diagnoses and get a 95% accurate support in, coming up with a treatment for their patients, rather than spending the time on, looking through those blood images. And also this is a lot more efficient. So for the patient, that would mean that they can get through the healthcare system more quickly, because, such a huge amount of images can be scanned so quickly. Then there's other things. So you can see over here some radiology data. So one of the projects that came out of the medical datathon we ran was a AI that can analyze radiology images and triage these so that radiologists can know which scans to look at more urgently. So perhaps if a scan showed up something a bit more sinister, then the radiologist will be flagged to look at that scan and look at that patient over perhaps a very benign scan that was taken. Those are just two examples. There's so many more things that can be applied to, the AI can be applied to the medical system, can accelerate research, drug discovery, improve recruitment in clinical trials, improve the patient experience, advanced diagnosis and predictive analytics. Lots of fantastic tools that can be developed. So in terms of those kinds of tools, for them to be implemented into the hospital system, people, clinicians, people in the medical system, people in research, people in drug discovery, industry who are developing these tools or running clinical trials, need to be informed on AI and how it works, what's the regulations around it. So if you want to flick to the next slide, Ellie. So it's not just simply, coming up with this model and implementing it into the system. There are a lot of factors that people need to be informed about when you're trying to implement AI into the healthcare system. There's a big difference between what's possible. So some people will say, oh, we can cure cancer with AI. How great is that? But then we need to consider what's feasible. Is that feasible? Are there actually some, do we need to be realistic about what AI can do and look at applying it to systems which it will actually benefit and that we really realistically at this stage can impact? Then people need to understand the technology. So how does the technology work? What different aspects of, computing and other technology are involved? Linking in with medical devices that already exist in the hospital system and leveraging those for implementing AI. As I mentioned before, clinical data is quite unique. So educating people on the types of data that are present in the healthcare system. Then data access is a whole topic on its own. How do we get access to data and how do we make sure that this is done securely, safely and ethically? A huge focus, especially in the healthcare system, is ethics and patient privacy. So that's something that we really need to focus on and educate people on. What are the regulations? How is the patient protected? What are the mechanisms for that? But how can we still create effective AI tools while protecting the patient and their privacy? Risks, obviously it's always important to be aware of the risks. So that's another aspect that we want to run some programs on educating people around. Regulation and policy is a huge one. Again, you know, the sorts of people that we want to educate are policymakers. So not AI practitioners, not clinicians, but people who make the policies, you know, are so crucial in helping us advance these really important and beneficial tools through the system. And obviously, you know, it's so beneficial for them to be informed on, you know, how does the legal system and the policy align with AI? How does it maybe need to change or be tweaked so that we can implement these tools while, as we said again, protecting the patients and protecting the practitioners. Another thing that needs to be considered is clinical workflow. You know, you can come up with a really cool app that you think will help, you know, solve an issue in the healthcare system, but you also need to consider, does this fit into the clinical workflow? And so that's where we need to engage clinicians into our education program to give feedback on that and to talk about, you know, what's the reality of the healthcare system and how it works on a day-to-day basis, and whether a tool would be beneficial within the clinical workflow. And then obviously implementation. So all of the factors around implementing these tools into the healthcare system. So those are all the sorts of things that, you know, people may not be aware of, that you need to be educated on, and that we want to support in providing that information, because it can be kind of hard. There's obviously a lot of online courses, there's a lot of information out there, and we want to consolidate these and make them applicable to the Australian system and to the Australian healthcare system as well, and really accessible for everyone from a single place. Just if we're going to flick to the next slide, Ali. So what will these programs look like? So as I mentioned, it's not just going to be, you know, one course to become fully certified in a certain area. There's all different ways that the education program will run for the health and medical side of things. For example, webinars. So exactly what we're having today. And also we do have a, you know, health tech, med tech webinar series. So different topics will be talked about throughout that series. It's usually just a 1 hour webinar that's free. So obviously that's a part of the education program, and we want to, you know, allow people to attend those, and that's how they can begin to become educated about certain issues in medtech and AI. Showcase, that's a really exciting aspect, is showcasing what's possible. So we have some local founders who've created apps, for example, you know, in the dental system, using apps to address, you know, telehealth and how we can implement AI into the healthcare system in Australia. There are people actually doing this already. So we want to showcase those solutions and show what's possible to help people start thinking about what they can do. Then we may have some 1 to 2 day workshops. So these could be focused on specific areas such as regulation. So if people want to know more about policy and regulation around AI, or they could be about the patient experience or ethics, all sorts of things. Interactive events, I also consider those educational. You know, datathons and accelerators are great places where people can educate through talking with each other. So at the Datathon, we had teams where there were clinicians talking to data scientists, and through that, they were becoming educated on possibilities, limitations, and all that sort of stuff. Then, as Ali already mentioned, micro-credentials, nano degrees, and also internships. So more formal ways of educating and upskilling people in health tech and AI. So that's an overview of the health tech education sector. I hope that that was sort of informative for people and people like that. If you want to hear more, you can get in touch with me at my email address there. Happy to hear any feedback as well. And we do really want to be interactive and learn from people about what it is that they want to know more about and how we can support them in upskilling and gaining experience in this field. So that's all from me. As Ali said, I'm happy for you to post questions in the chat box and we can answer those for you today. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Steph. And I'm not sure what we've got on the Q&A so far. Are there any questions that you'd like to take on?
So let's see this one. It's not out of the question to build autonomous self-service capsule hospitals with no people to make errors due to stress or sleep deprivation. If we get high school kids to start dreaming now, it could be real in 5 or 10 years. That's a very interesting statement. I think, you know, yeah, I mean, anything's possible, right? But, you know, when you think about sort of a self-serviced system that's in the healthcare system, there would be a lot of factors that you need to consider. And yeah, that's it is interesting, the idea of removing human error from, you know, things such as, you know, medical treatment. But you know, there's other elements such as it's important to have that human connection when getting healthcare as well. So yeah, that's an interesting, that's probably a whole webinar in and of itself, is fully, you know, autonomous self-service systems.
Well, Luke actually just added to that, Steph, in saying, you know, tying in with the space industry, where I guess, you know, probably there is going to be limited human contact. So, you know, coming up with solutions where you're not required to see a person, probably very helpful.
Yes, absolutely. And that is really exciting. You know, if we can create, you know, this really advanced, personalized, autonomous medical system and then apply it in, you know, perhaps in remote places where there aren't experts or people that are highly skilled, and people can get really high levels of treatment and diagnosis accessible to them in remote places, even as remote as space. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a really cool and out there idea, but that's where I think obviously we're headed anyway. We just need people to implement that, and you know, the way we're going to get them to implement it is through educating people on the possibilities. So very cool idea.
Ali, I think that there's a question here from Peter Yates that you might want to answer.
Yes, so it says, Peter said, building on that, do these programs fit into STEM, STEAM in our education system, empowering our the creative mind? So STEAM is, of course, adding arts into the STEM proposition there. And yes, 100%, absolutely critical. AI is touching every industry at the moment, and and that includes in the arts, in audio art, in picture art, in all types of art. So children, you know, I'm not an educated teacher, but I do know from my work in schools that children learn first and best when you engage them and you inspire their curiosity and you point out, you know, or you draw their attention to what is possible. The second thing that I've found really important is, and it's not dissimilar with adults, but how is this relevant? You know, how does AI align with your own goals, you know, your own mission, you know, things that you're passionate about? Is it ending world hunger? Is it, you know, anything environmental? Is it fixing climate? Is it climate change? Is it all those types of things? So yes, in terms of the programs that we're developing, it will be about the whole mind. It will be artificial intelligence, the technical side, but it will also be bringing in the artistic, and it will also be bringing in the, this sounds very, I don't really like this terminology, but what we call tech adjunct skills. So the personal skills, so inquiring minds, understanding unconscious bias, self-efficacy, you know, how do we understand AI? How do we make sure we get the best out of it? So it's a big picture with young people, and it's not just about the technical. So we do want to make sure that we cover all those bases.
So I think I could probably take on the next question. It's one from Unaway saying, are you looking to partner with AI startups that aim to onboard traditionally industries to start their AI journey, such as manufacturing? One of the things that I think we didn't cover during this webinar was that what we would like to do within the AI Hub is run what we call transformer labs, where we bring in teams from government and corporates or from industries such as you're pointing out there, manufacturing, who perhaps have already identified a project that they want to commence in AI, and we bring them in and we match them up with AI experts in residence and local AI capability to help them solve those challenges, and then, you know, look at how we can foster a win-win. So you know, sometimes companies start on these journeys of trying to create AI solutions themselves, and then struggle to make sure that they can implement them. So being able to team up with AI experts is one of our aims. And so, yeah, Una, please get in touch with us. You know, it would be great to learn a bit more about the sort of services that you're currently looking to offer as your startup. And then I think this one might be for you, Ali, from Ken Dunstan. He mentions that Queensland has strong mining, agriculture, aerospace industries and employers. We need to consider education plans to ensure designers and operators are able to deliver and operate AI systems and devices for those industries. And so, yeah, I guess about how do we educate AI creators about the sectors that their work could be applied to?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've already identified that those are very strong industries for Queensland, and that we do need to focus on that. So in terms of ensuring designers, operators are able to deliver and operate AI systems, it's really, really important. I can't obviously talk about specifics, so I'm going to kind of try and work around this, but we're already looking to work with a particular well, I suppose a business in terms of doing exactly that. So assisting the people that are going to be accrediting things and operating certain systems, that they're understanding exactly what it is they're doing, how AI applies to that. And you're right, it's not really happening yet. And we're actually getting a few people asking us for these sorts of things, because it's critical that, you know, they're able to understand. I can relate this back to a healthcare example, and that is if you're a medical practitioner and you have no understanding of AI and you're learning, you're using a data set, and Steph will be able to talk to this as well, but that's not entirely accurate, and you're not a machine learning engineer or an AI practitioner, and but you're making decisions based on a data set that you don't understand, and that leads to really, really bad healthcare outcomes, and you can actually be putting people's lives at risk. So I think it's really important, and I take your point that we work with industry to do that.
Yeah, some reverse education in some respects.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
I think that's a good opportunity.
Yeah, and I think there's one I'd like to pass back to you as well. There's Sue from Andrew saying, would like to understand whether and to what extent you'll be working with and leveraging the existing AI capability and resources already within Queensland. He didn't say incredible, but I'll put it in there, universities.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. So QUT and UQ are foundation partners in the Queensland AI Hub. So I think that we will be surfacing, and trying to promote the AI educational opportunities that you can pursue through the universities. And following COVID, I think universities are now much more receptive to the idea of embracing micro-credentialing. And I was actually just talking to UQ about this morning. So I think that there are probably a lot of opportunities there for courses that perhaps haven't been accessible in the past. And for those of you who've been involved with the Queensland AI Hub for some time, you might know that, the whole basis of the creation of the Queensland AI Hub was filling a gap that existed at the time where people were unable to access the AI education that they desired. And I think the universities are starting to fill that gap. And so really in putting this education program together, Ali is really pulling on a lot of different strings to make sure that we're not reproducing capability that already exists, but also taking into account some of the capabilities that are emerging. And I think that, yes, we're definitely taking into account what's happening at Queensland's universities, and we're really pleased to see some indications that those offerings are likely to be increasing in terms of people's ability to access AI education through our local universities. So it's all good news for people who want to learn about AI.
Absolutely. And there's one here that says, where do you see Queensland's particular AI strengths are on the world stage? So you've been doing some incredible work in robotics, and, interested to hear you talk about that and other strengths.
Yeah, I'm not sure I have a firm view on that, for the very broad field of AI. I mean, from the robotics perspective, certainly Australia has strengths in the development of cyber physical systems. So being able to develop sensors and other technology that can operate in remote locations, can operate regardless of whether you can supply power, so can be energy neutral, can operate in areas where potentially there's no communications, so particularly GPS denied environments, underground, underwater, and that have to be very robust to operate in Australia's extreme environments. And I think we see this in the development of many technologies that are used in ag tech, are used in mining. And I think that's definitely where we have a strength. But I actually think, I think we have a few other strengths that are under-recognised. And partly that's because Australia is, has its own character, and there are some problems that are more acute to us than perhaps to other parts of the world. So, there are some problems that Silicon Valley doesn't actually seem that fussed about solving. So, the protection of the Great Barrier Reef, for example, is probably feels far more acute to us than it might do for other people in other parts of the world. However, anything that we develop in that area can be applied in a whole range of areas. So, I think it's unique to the Australian context where our AI strengths are developing. But, variously I've heard that apart from cyber-physical systems, Australia has some unique capabilities in natural language processing. I probably need to unpick that a little bit more before giving a thorough answer, but I think there certainly are some signs that we definitely have some niche capabilities that are strengths on the world stage. And have we come to the end of questions?
I think we have. Just drawing the attention to the very top of the chat, Sue, about where are we?
There is another question actually from Andrew Robinson around credentialing.
Excellent. Please go ahead.
Yes, okay. So Andrew said that we mentioned that we're looking at 2 credentialing partners, one overseas, one in Brisbane, and he's wondering if we might be better off with the Brisbane one, as you might have an easier time aligning it with our Queensland mission. What do we think? Some credentialing may conflict with your core values/mission.
Mm-hmm. I mean, our preference obviously is to, source and use the vast array of talent that is here, and yes, will we certainly be working with that Queensland group. We're almost at finalisation stage. I suppose we also see our role as, provider agnostic, to the extent that if we feel that there's a provider that has certain experience or is able to offer something in particular that may not be able to be met, then we will look to do that, because it's all about what we can provide to people in industry. And the overseas one has some really, really excellent courses that the Brisbane one simply doesn't have the capacity to offer. And so we want to ensure that we can, have that broad range of offerings. But as I said, if we can find that capability here in Queensland, that is where we will go first, 100%.
And there's another question here. Are there opportunities for regional universities to be involved? This is a question from someone at CQ University. Mm-hmm. They're part of the QUT MIT REAP program, and they lead a STEM Central and have just opened their Advanced Technology and Innovation Centre. Well, congratulations.
Yes, yes.
How can regional universities become involved? You speak of Brisbane-based universities, but how can the regions become partners? Ali.
Oh, goodness me. Oh, no, you're really challenging me on this. Look, I mean, we are. So a part of our regional strategy is actually working with regional universities. So we're making some, we're working with a group in Cairns at the moment, and we're working with James Cook University up there. There's a lot of agriculture in Cairns, and we see a lot of local knowledge, a lot of opportunity, and definitely a lot of innovation in those regional areas. So please, yes, 100%, please reach out to me/us, and let's see how we can work together.
Another question, what do we see are the limitations in current AI and data science education in Queensland universities? Well, I mean, I think the slowness to develop real micro-credentialing is probably my top pick, but Steph, Ali, do you have any views?
I think, look, that's a very, very hard question. I think, you know, universities do an incredible job in the education offerings. I think due to the nature of universities, it's very, very difficult to often get things happening quickly, and for them to be agile in pivoting their course offerings as things adapt quickly. And that's through no fault of the people working in the universities, but sometimes the university systems themselves are, you know, the processes of getting things approved is quite slow. So, you know, being able to, you know, certainly include universities, but be able to partner with a number of different providers mean that we can respond in real time, and we can generally find something that's going to fit need and be able to keep up to date. Because, I mean, you know, like Sue said, with the micro-credentialing, you know, some of those courses change month by month, slightly tweaking as updates to programming languages and different types of AI start to become introduced. It's really important that you have that broad range of offerings. And of course, universities can't really, you know, they're very, very they're student-centric in their research focus. And so delivering a 1 hour, you know, industry briefings generally not so much on the radar. And we want to be able to, you know, as I said, offer all of those different types of training and education initiatives. Well, so for any university people watching, they're amazing.
Yeah, I would add to that and say that I would say, sort of to what you said, Ali, it's the engagement of industry within those education programs, because industry maybe does have their finger on the pulse a little bit more, is a bit more agile to deliver the latest information on, you know, the use of AI and data science and the application of it. So that would just be a current limitation, but also an opportunity, I think.
So we're actually at time. I like Peter Yates' closing comment. We need for individuals to understand AI and not fear it. You know, hallelujah, that's exactly what we really need to do. There is a question I'm going to take on notice about the reference to strengths in NLP. I've been frantically in the background trying to find my Sydney contact who described why we have why we do have some advantages in NLP, and I will make sure I pull that out and figure out how I can get that information to you. But I'd like to just wrap up now, and please join me virtually in thanking our speakers. Ali Anderson.
Sorry, can I just interject quickly? So the survey, I'm not seeing a link. Is there a link to the education survey in the chat?
Yes, it is. It's just appeared now. So,
wonderful. Okay.
Yes, I'll finish off by revving people up to complete that survey. But first, I'd like everyone to join me virtually to thank our speakers, Ali Anderson and Steph Charsis. Thank you very much. Just imagine the applause that you're receiving online. And yes, if you please have a look at the end of near the end of the chat, you'll see that there is a link, and we would really appreciate it if you have the opportunity to fill out that survey, and that will help us in terms of how we're putting our education offerings together. Just give us some extra information. We'd really appreciate that. And yes, so thank you everyone for joining us tonight, and we will keep you informed of what our programs, so please check in with us, and we hope to be able to announce some of our programs soon. Thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you.